Well, I guess I'll start off with some basic introductions, this being a documentary and all. Hi, my name is Hans Sassaman. I'm 17 years old. I was born in Manhattan, spent all my life in the States, and I've only been to the Visayas twice, only once that I can remember. You know, I'm a lot of things. I'm a student, I'm a brother, I'm an American citizen, but for the purposes of this documentary, I am foremost Visaya. So, the Visayas. Where should I start? Well, whenever someone refers to the Visayas, they really mean the central regional islands of the Philippines. The major islands are the Visayas, of course, being Panay, Negros, Cebu, Bohol, Leyte, and Samar. The dominant language is also referred to as Visayan, but there are many dialectal differences within the Visayas alone because of the Visayas' nature as separate islands. That's where you get Boholano, Hiliganon, Waray, Cebuano, which is what I grew up, my parents always talk, my family always talked, and actually Cebuano is the dominant dialect of the region as it has the second most speakers, second of course to Tagalog, the national language. The majority of Visayans are Roman Catholics. They're very faithful and reverent people in the Visayas to Jesus, and that of course goes back to Spain's colonization of our lands and their spreading of Christianity. There are other smaller denominations scattered around the Visayas, but really nothing compared to the Catholic population here. And while the Visayas are under the governmental jurisdiction of the Filipino government, which is centered in Luzon, Manila, the Visayas certainly has small local governments and municipalities in the towns and cities. And that actually they play a similar role to that of the American local governments. We even have some family personally involved in local politics, but they only really decide on things like town infrastructure, the budget, and local police and firemen decisions. The Visayas and the Philippines they have very similar economic system to America, as it once was colonized by the United States and influenced our government and our economy. It is a mixed economic system. Regarding the Visayas, our main industries are agriculture and fishing, so still pretty rudimentary, not very industrialized as compared to other parts of the Philippines, other parts of Southeast Asia, and so forth. But moving on to Visayan culture specifically, it's very much intertwined with the Catholicism, as I mentioned before. It's such a major part of our lives, and a good example is the Sinulog celebration held in Cebu, which is the biggest in the Philippines and in the world. There we celebrate Santo Niño, or Child Jesus, and is coming to us, even in the islands so far away from the back then Catholic world. The food is definitely something the Visayas is known for. There are, of course, many popular dishes such as umba, which is Visayan adobo, and Cebuano lechon, which many chefs, including the late and great Anthony Bourdain, regarded as the best pig ever. Something you'll notice about the food, the language, and the culture, however, is that there's a clear Spanish influence. But in Visayan art, we see sort of this last vestige of ancient Visayan culture. In the pagan spirits, ceremonial tattoos, and the early peoples in general, which is very common in the Visayan art. But overall, it's certainly one of the more overlooked parts of modern Visayan culture, no doubt about that. So moving on to clothing, one thing you must keep in mind when examining Visayan clothing, it is that it's very hot in the tropics, and yet Visayans still have to keep a very conservative dress code to keep up us being Catholics and all. So when you see the barong for men and the Maria Clara dress for women, both of which are ceremonial and used for weddings and funerals and such, their fineness and their apparent lightweightness makes sense. You know, we're not trying to overheat ourselves, but there's still a sense of respect. For our music, there aren't really any old genres of music that come solely from the Visayas. At this point, there is just too much influence from, well, America since the 20th century, Spain since the 16th century, and the Muslim and Indian influence dating back from the Chola dynasty, which had a small trade contact with the Visayas dating back to ancient times. That said, there is plenty of music, from religious to ballads to disco to classical, and so the Visayas sure has a lot of original content with some notable instruments such as the Visayan Bandura, which is a Spanish-originated guitar, but has an extra string, making it sounds uniquely Visayan. Regarding if there's any one issue or problem we of the Visayas would like to see the UN address going forward, well, although it may not be specific to the Visayas, natural disasters are so incredibly common here that in a lot of ways it's become a part of life. The only difference now is that with an increasing population and stronger recorded typhoons, some speculate due to climate change, the Philippines is now falling behind in how best to take care of the natural disasters and population displacement, poverty, and industrial waste they cause. If there's any one thing about the Visayans' value and culture, it's that we don't like to ask for help. I think it has a lot to do with our general devoutness and feeling that whatever is wrong or goes bad, it's not about us. It's about helping those who need it the most, and it's about God. But we can never recognize when it's us. And so we fall into this heartbreaking holes of poverty and pollution and hunger. So, in concluding, if there's anything I could recognize on behalf of the Visayas and the Visayans, it's that we really need help from the UN in creating better equipped systems, protocols, and plans to deal with these natural disasters and the eventual problems they will cause when they hit. With that said, that's all I have to say. Daghan salamat kaninyong tanan. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.
When Magellan landed in Cebu City, Raha Humabon met him, they were very happy. All people were baptized and built the Church of Christ, and that's the beginning of our Catholic life.